Coming up, Dera and I are going to be talking about buffs and nerfs. So what recently happened to Shanna, Sandman, Enchantress. We're going to be talking about the upcoming card, which is Nebula. We're going to be talking about last week's card and our experience with it, which was Stegron. We're going to be talking about Galactus. Is he overpowered? We're also going to be talking about collector's tokens. Do they still hold the same value that they once had? Also, this episode is sponsored by Untapped.gg. Thanks to Untapped for sponsoring this video and podcast. Click the link in my profile. Check them out. Welcome to episode 5 of the Dekks and Dera podcast. We got a lot to talk about. How you doing today, Dera?
I'm doing well. We have a lot to talk about, I think, today. There's been a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of changes.
A lot of very, I think, good, healthy changes. Yeah.
And then also this podcast is sponsored by Untapped.gg. We'll get more into that later. First up, let's talk about the nerfs and buffs from last week, the over-the-air changes that are happening every Thursday. We finally started this. I think they're going to do it for at least a month. First changes are Sandman dropping from 5 power to 3 power. We got Lizard going to -4 power if the opponent has 4 cards instead of -3. We got Shanna going from 2 power to 4 power, so a buff for Shanna. And Enchantress going from 4 power to 6 power, which I think is the largest change of all of them so far. I'm curious to hear what you have to say, but I think they kind of went a little overboard on Enchantress, but I'm happy to see Sandman nerfed personally.
Yeah, I do agree. Enchantress is the biggest change for sure. It makes Enchantress playable as just like in any deck, even if you can play it out even when you don't need to like remove ongoing abilities. I think that 4/6 stat line feels really solid with it. That is just like, it might be too good, but I kind of like it being a little bit too good for a little bit here, because you'll see some more play. It's like there is going to be the rise of the Sarah tech decks, I think, is part of the problem with this Enchantress being too good. But it kind of like is a little bit flavorful with the Lizard getting nerfed, because Enchantress now, you can now more easily play that in your decks with your Lizard and have the Lizard be unaffected by that -4 power that got nerfed to. So Lizard, I think, is the smallest and maybe inconsequential change here that it's rarely going to affect the final outcome of the game, I think, with that -4 power. Enchantress going to affect everything, I feel like. Sandman? We're not really seeing it anymore. Are you seeing it anymore?
No, it's been a huge drop-off in Sandman. I'm actually surprised because, as you said, like the Sarah tech decks, the Sarah control decks are kind of surging in popularity. We'll go over a tier list later, but that deck, I think, might be the most popular, or at least the top performing, because you have Shang in there, you have Enchantress in there, you have all these, Killmonger, all these different tech cards that you just surprise, steal a bunch of cubes, swing the game on that final turn. So I feel like Sandman would be great against that. They can't do these huge last turns. They play Sarah on 5 and they pretty much lose. But yeah, not a lot of people playing Sandman. That 2 power makes a big difference. Often you were going like Sandman into Doom or something, so that two power really matters.
Yeah, Sandman already wasn't performing well in a win rate perspective. It was really popular, but it wasn't doing that well, so this makes it even worse. So it does cut it back. But as you said, Sarah being popular, maybe it can come back. But one thing that I've noticed, I played a lot of Sarah tech decks in the last couple of days, and Enchantress being now in every deck, you can actually Enchantress the Sandman many times if they play it before turn 5. So ramping into Sandman isn't necessarily as good because every deck is running Enchantress, and you can just Enchantress the Sandman, and now you can play out your big turn 6 still. So it does have that kind of limitation.
That's very true, because before, if you had Enchantress, you were spending 4 whole energy on only 4 power. So using that on a Sandman, it kind of just hurt you a little bit, but now there's not a big downside having that 6 power. Reminds me of White Queen being so good just because she had 6 power back in the early days when I first started playing. So yeah, I think she might be too good. Yeah, you can slaughter in almost any deck. Like I'm scared to play Rocks and Hawks or the Mold'em and Fold'em because she just destroys Hawks, destroys Ronin. I'm scared.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to start playing some Cosmo in those decks. I feel like that's the only way to really stop these tech decks. I think Cosmo kind of like fell out of the meta a little bit, and these tech decks just really have risen. So I think Cosmo's going to make a resurgence very soon. But we haven't talked about this yet, but what do you think of the new Shanna?
I have not played with her enough. I was actually messing around with the Shanna build in the past, and she was doing okay. I maybe had like a 50% win rate with the deck I was messing around with. Her buff, I feel like it's good. At 2 power, she felt a little too weak. At 4, I feel like she just feels very mediocre still. I think the problem with Shanna lies in her variance of the 1-drops. Sometimes you get a Hood, sometimes you get an Ebony Maw, sometimes you get a 0, and it messes up your, I don't know, your following play if you don't play her on the last turn. But yeah, I think I still wish, I think I complained about this in the past. I wish you just summoned like a bunch of 2/2 squirrels, or sorry, one power, no, 1 energy, 2 power squirrels everywhere, just like big squirrel or something like that. I think that'd be cool. I hate seeing bad.
You hate the randomness.
The randomness, yeah.
You hate the fun RNG casino Shanna decks. I played a lot of Shanna over the last couple days, and I think that she's actually more than mediocre. I think she's good. I think she's actually a good card now, because I did the math on it, and it is an average of 2/2, like not 2/2, sorry, 2 power from each of the drops on average. So she is now a 4/10 on average. Like there are going to be the low rolls where you get the Hood, but more, like the low rolls counteract the high rolls where you get like an Ebony Maw or like an Ant-Man in a full lane or a Rocket Raccoon that becomes 5 power. Like a lot of those things happen, and you're still going to on average get out 2 power per unit that she summons and become a 4/10. 4/10 stats is the highest really that you can get for a 4-drop, other than like
Namor.
Like Darkhawk, I think is maybe like one where you could have to buff it up in multiple ways, but it's like Shanna 4/10 without like a Kazar on the field or a Blue Marvel, which would buff up all those drops. But I personally have been using Shanna in my Sarah decks as just a last turn dump card to counteract some of the negative effects that can be pulled out of her. So you're not playing her before the last turn, and that way you also avoid a pesky Killmonger from your opponent.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the way to go. I was looking up popular Shanna decks, and it does seem like most of them are just Sarah decks that happen to also run Shanna as that last turn play.
Yep,
it works. Yeah, just Killmonger is really bad, so maybe she's just played not in like Zoo decks, just as a surprise spread of power on that final turn. Because yeah, 4/10 is good. Also gets into like Sanctum and stuff like that.
Yep.
I think I'm hoping Dazzler gets fixed or buffed maybe in the next OTA.
Yeah.
Maybe we can speculate about changes we want. I definitely didn't expect these. Maybe the Shanna one I could have seen coming in the
Sandman.
We
kind of guessed Shanna might get this, right?
We were expecting a Shanna change, so maybe next is a Dazzler change. But I think I read somewhere that a Dazzler change is maybe like in the works, but they can't do it in an OTA to change it how they want to, or something like that.
Yeah, they didn't confirm it was in the works, but they said like basically like what they would want to do to change it would require a real patch. I saw that same note from Glenn.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. Raven had come up with a pretty good change to Dazzler that I would like. It would basically, any full lane would add 2 power to Dazzler, so you didn't have to have all 3 full. You basically get it in like parts. So you could have 2 full lanes, it gets +2/+2, and you end up with a 4/8. So I think that'd be still like a good change that would make it a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, I'd like that. That'd be good. That's a good one. I like that Raven guy.
Yep. Yeah. he finally gets some credit for all the content that I steal from him.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about Stegron. As soon as Stegron came out, they released a location. I think it was Sandbar. And I couldn't play Stegron with Sandbar because then you were helping your opponent out. And then after that, I haven't really messed with him. I did play with him maybe 10, 20 games or so, and he felt underwhelming to me. Maybe I just haven't found the right list, because I mean, I thought Mold was underwhelming until I tried out your list. But looking here at Untapped.gg's stats, we can see negative average cubes. We got a negative win rate, or below 50% win rate, and popularity is, well, it's low because he's expensive and not a lot of people have picked him up.
Yeah.
And if we are looking at lists here, they all seem pretty bad in a junk list, so you can slap things around, but this list
I tried it in a junk list. I didn't think it was that good in the junk list.
What do you think about Stegron? I would put him like in C or D tier. Pretty bad. Definitely not worth the tokens.
Yeah, I think I think he's going to be a tech card similar to Negasonic Teenage Warhead, where there's going to be very specific use cases against very specific decks that you can put him in that'll be good to tech in. But I don't think it's going to be a universally good card to put into like decks. It's not really a deck build around. I tried to do a deck build around with like a Kingpin deck that we kind of talked about in the previous podcast, and it's worked sometimes. I actually had a pretty good win rate to start, but then as I played more games, it became clear that the deck was not super good, and then I couldn't keep playing it because the hot location came out, as you pointed out. So I played it as much as I could. I tried a couple different versions of Stegron. Nothing was too solid. I don't know, if you want to pull up my profile, you can look at my Stegron stats. The cube rates, I would say, are not as important because I don't leave games. My 2 decks with Stegron, I tried a lockdown list wait, one of these, I had 2 different this is a Kingpin list, so it's like I try to do what we had kind of talked about, is like lock down a location with Professor X, Kingpin the other one, Stegron cards into it, or I'd lock it down with Spider-Man and have Kingpin in the lane with Spider-Man, so it would knock the ones into that lane and just blow up if they were to move. So it worked half the time, it looks like 50% of my games. But yeah.
Wow, this is a large sample size. You probably...
Yeah, I played a lot that day. That was 1 days of games. You
lowered the average cube win rate of Stegron quite a bit, it would seem. But yeah, pretty bad. Let me look at my profile. Oh, I only played 11 games with Stegron.
Yeah, but you got a positive cube rate.
Yeah,
but you're also, Thatcher Black Bolt is a good deck in general, so that's
I was carried by other... I think Stegron... I probably played him once or twice out of all these games. I was trying to make a video for Stegron. It didn't happen because he just rarely got drawn or rarely made an impact. So I felt like I was lying to my audience if I made a video on like, wow, look at Stegron, because he's not.
I lied to my audience, and by lied to him, I mean it's a very entertaining video with Stegron. I will say there was a lot of fun things that happened, so it's still a good video to go watch and see some crazy Stegron plays. Go check it out. It's called Stegron Slaps or something like that. So, and by slaps, it doesn't slap in the way that it's very good, but it slaps cards around.
Yeah. Well, should we talk about next week's card? We got Nebula coming out here. This is going to be the season pass card. We have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which is the new movie coming out. So, they always try and base the cards in the season around what movie's coming out. So we got Nebula, which I think is going to be one of the premium 1-drops. So if you can afford to buy the season pass, it's probably worth it. Generally, season passes are always worth it, and this is no exception. Because Nebula is a 1/1 where each turn your opponent doesn't play here, +2 power, except for the turn you play this. So if you played on 1 and they play nothing there for the following 5 turns, you have a 1/11, which is obscene. I feel like if you play this on turn 1, you're generally gonna have at least a 1/5, probably a 1/7 if you get Nebula out there early. And then she does synergize with other cards, your Guardians cards, using her with Rocket Raccoon, or using her with Star-Lord or Groot. Your opponents are likely to play in that lane, which means you're more likely to get a hit on your on reveal, making those cards better. So I love that synergy. What do you think about Nebula?
I completely agree. I think Nebula will be, calling it now, the best 1-drop in the game. I think you'll play this in any deck you want a 1-drop. Like right now, I think it's between like Iceman or like, I don't know, is kind of like the premium 1-drop. Like Sunspot still fills a lot of roles, but this is better than Sunspot, I think, nowadays. Because most of the time, like I think the bare minimum, if you get this out like turn 4 before, you're gonna get at least 1 tick on this, I feel like. And that makes it a 1/3, which is already an overstated 1-drop. So that means that it's already good. So if you get 2 on it, it's crazy, right? It's a 1/5. That's a Titania. It's like too good. I feel like this might make Killmonger in a lot of decks, like because Nebula is going to be everywhere, I think, when the season pass comes out.
Yeah, I think Nebula is going to make the Sarah control decks we've been talking about even better because, well, they're probably going to play them, maybe, but also they're going to play Killmongers to destroy enemy Nebulas if necessary. I don't think this will bring Electra back into the meta, maybe in some sort of bounce deck, but yeah, Nebula is going to be running rampant for sure. Sunspot kind of fell out of popularity, and Nebula's just way better. Also, I feel like she is going to go in every deck. Like, why wouldn't you include Nebula?
I completely agree. I think it'll be just a 1-drop curve, and it'll be really good in like lockdown decks. Like you put this in a Storm lane, you put this in Professor X Spider-Man lane, it gets guaranteed power. You know, it's just like, it's going to be really good, I think. Like better than Sunspot because you can play your own cards out. You don't have to float any mana, right? Like it's just like you put it in a Storm lane, it's just gaining power every turn, right?
Yeah, I'm definitely premature here, but I feel like she already needs a nerf. A 1-0 or something. Like she's probably going to be the most played card.
A lot of people were speculating that like this has kind of been leaked for like 2 months now that Nebula was going to be this card, and people were like, oh no, they'll definitely change it before it comes out. I don't think it used to have the text except the turn you play this, so I feel like they at least added that, because that would be really insane without that text. So at least you can't play it on a turn and get power that turn. So
yeah, I feel like this is going to need an over the air to make it a 1-0 or like a -1 even, because we'll see.
I don't know about -1. I think that might be a little bit too much for her, but we'll see.
Yeah. You could see how much of a difference 1 power can make just looking at Sunspot. Went from a 1-1 to a 1-0, and the play rate dropped drastically. Just because I think he was neck and neck with Iceman, and Iceman didn't get nerfed.
Yeah.
Sunspot did, so now Iceman is better.
I think 1-0 actually hurts cards a lot, because if you play it on a final turn or without it ever gaining its power, it does nothing, right? Like it's just literally 0. So I think that is a pretty big difference. So you can't even like get like steal priority in a lane that's empty or something like that.
Yeah.
So like 1-0 I think is a pretty big nerf. Just like 1 -1. I think giving cards negative power is definitely should be reserved for very specific situations, I feel like, because that's actually like a pretty negative thing, and it could be used to actually give yourself or give priority up on purpose. So it's like there are positives that could come from that as well. So
yeah, very true. Let's move on to the tier list. Untapped.gg's tier list here. The
sponsor of today.
Yeah, the sponsor of today's podcast. Thank you to Untapped.gg. We got a nice looking tier list that a lot of people are using. This is pretty much where anyone goes if they want to look at a tier list. We do have premium, which you can buy if you want. That allows us to filter it here. So we have a filter of collection level 3000 plus, as well as rank 70 to 100. And it's the latest patch, which excludes hot locations. If you do, buy premium and you hook up your account here, you can actually sort to decks where you have the cards. I have all the cards, so I can't give a great example, but you can click like cards that are owned, and it'll filter based off your personal collection. It'll tell you like, this is the best deck to play for your collection. So pretty cool. Untapped, they have been around for quite a while, and I love them. I used to use Hearthstone Deck Tracker for Hearthstone, so if anyone comes from there, same company, really good guys over there. So yeah, thanks to Untapped for sponsoring this. I mean, they also have these profiles, which I think this will become part of our weekly podcast where we go over the stats from last week's card. We could just see like, yeah, good thing. Hopefully no one really bought Stegron. Or if you did, hopefully you're enjoying him more than we have. But yeah, they have this really nice profile here where you could just go to your stats. You can filter by cards, and you can just look. Like you can see I was playing a Sharknado deck, which I just made. And it's been doing pretty good. And then, yeah, just scroll down, see what's been doing well for you, what's been doing bad for you, your cube win rate, how many games you played, and whatnot. And then you can sort by net cubes. So like my most cube win rate deck is Moldy Rocks, and then OG Sentry Redux.
You do Moldy Rocks.
Yeah, that's Mold 'em and Fold 'em.
That's a good deck.
Yeah,
that's Mold 'em and Fold 'em.
Yeah, and you could sort by dates and stuff like that. I actually don't even know if this is a paid feature, but I am a premium user, and I have been for forever. So I don't even know what comes in the free version. Download using my link in the description below, and you can also get this tracker, this companion app, where you can keep track of what cards you have drawn, what's still in your deck. This is a really nice feature. You can also see what you've maybe discarded or what's been destroyed, so you can figure out, oh, can my opponent play Death or whatnot? What is my Jubilee going to pull? Is it going to pull Giganto? Is it going to pull Destroyer, Red Skull? You can really kind of narrow it down and just up your playstyle. Maybe you can finally get Infinite if you use the deck tracker. Find that in the description below, and thank you again to Untapped for sponsoring this video.
But yeah, I think tracking the stats is my favorite part about it. Just being able to see how I've done with the different decks each day and each play session. It's really, really useful, I think, for just keeping track of what's been good, what hasn't been good.
Yeah, I love stalking Dera and looking at what's doing well, and then I could just not play the decks that are doing bad and steal the good ones and make YouTube videos.
A lot of bad decks in there, and then the good decks that are actually 70% plus win rates, you know?
Modusi? This is a bot farming deck, isn't it?
It is, but that was against real people. And it was crushing. Yeah, that was yesterday. Wow. Crushed with this deck. I might make a video on that deck because I mentioned on my stream, I was like, Dekkster said he tried this deck and it wasn't working for him against real people. But I tried it yesterday and it was crushing. It might just be the new meta. This crushes in the new meta, so.
Yeah, it's got to be that. Definitely not my piloting errors.
But then you look at also the Shanna Sarah deck. That thing popped off. That thing was...
Tropical Thunder.
I released a video calling this the new _1 deck because I think a Sarah control deck is new #1. I think Shanna might actually be one of the better cards in the deck.
You love to lie. Did you?
I'm not lying. I'm not lying there. I'm actually claiming that Sarah control is the best deck right now. Shanna is definitely a decent addition to it, you know.
I see. Wow, you tried the Dekkster Sentry deck and it did not go well for you.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, I don't think that went that well. But we also, like, you can't look at cube rates sometimes when I'm streaming these decks because I won't leave any games really a lot of times, so I don't retreat very often. So cube rates, you have to look at the win rates for the most part.
All right. Yeah, let's go back to the tier list here, which we do have filtered to collection level 3000 plus, rank 70 to 100 plus. Sometimes I change this to 99. You could see the total game sample size here, or if you're listening to the podcast, I guess you can't. But 70 to 100 plus, this is at 270,000 games from the latest patch. And if we filter out the infinite ranks, it's a 190,000. But then you don't get as many bots in these sample sizes. So the A tier decks here, as we said, Sarah Control is #1. We could see the most popular deck here doesn't necessarily mean this is the best version of the deck, but this is basically a Sarah deck running a bunch of tech cards. Your Killmonger, your Shang-Chi, your Enchantress, Scarlet Witch to change locations, and then we got a Hit Monkey and this most popular deck as well. This is just very good because your opponent can't really play around it unless they maybe play like a Sandman, but you just end up killing their big thing with the Shang and winning that lane, or using Enchantress to ruin their Devil Dino or their Darkhawk or their Ronin if for some reason they're playing Ronin. So this is the #1 deck with a 0.34 average cube win rate, 53.8% win rate, and 7.7% popularity, that's pretty popular.
If you scroll down to Hitmonkey, the Hitmonkey decks also, it's at the bottom of B. It is also Sarah control pretty much, is one thing to note. I've noticed that a lot of decks get put in there, so there's another 3.2% of games that kind of fall under this Hitmonkey archetype that are also kind of Sarah control-y. So that's just a good note. So a lot of people were playing my Shanna deck here, not to as good of win rates as the other Sarah control, but I think this version requires a lot more, I guess, patience in the plays that you have to make. You have to hold back a lot more power because this runs Zabu in addition to Sarah, so you have to hold back your power even longer and wait to surprise your opponent.
I think
a lot of people don't do that.
It's hard to pilot these decks. I think we both piloted, maybe it was this exact deck to was this a Tropical Thunder one?
Yeah, that's Tropical Thunder. Yep.
Yeah, we both did very well with this, but our audience did not do so well with it. A lot of it is, I think, piloting skill. It's a little bit difficult to play.
Calling your viewers bad.
No, because a lot of my viewers did well with it, but it's deceiving and it feels weird. Like there's a lot of turns where you're just doing nothing on turn 3 or doing nothing on turn 4.
But purposely doing nothing.
Some people are like, oh, I have Shanna, I have 4 energy, I'm gonna play Shanna. But you see,
don't do that.
You have Sarah in your deck, and maybe you had Zabu down. Like you just gotta wait. It's
a lot of waiting.
There's a lot of thought that you have to put into the deck, like several turns ahead. It's not just like, oh, I'm playing Shuri, and then I'm playing Red Skull, and then I'm playing Taskmaster, or I'm playing Wave, and then I'm playing Sandman, and then I'm playing Doom. Yeah, there's a lot of thought behind the Sarah decks. I love them. I think they're a lot of fun.
I love them too. It's really about understanding the meta and understanding your opponent, and then understanding priority as well. Like you have to give up priority a lot of the times with these decks. And I think just being able to use that knowledge that you have of the meta and your opponent's decks and being able to counter people is really fun, and being able to actually like out skill your opponent rather than just like out RNG them with a lot of other decks. Right.
Yeah. All right, so Sarah Control doing really well. One of the other most popular decks in the A tier is Sarah Surfer, which is another Sarah deck. I messed around with this a bit, and it did okay. I feel like Sarah Control is better, which, I mean, it's performing better as well. But if you miss Surfer decks, go ahead and give this a try. I did okay, I think, when I was playing this. Let me pull up my stats. Okay, maybe I didn't do too good, actually. Yeah, I think this deck was underperforming. I wanted to make a video on this, and the Surfer deck was just not cutting it for some reason. A lot of these...
So you have Shadow King in one of those. That was a month ago, though.
A couple of these do have Shadow King, but yeah, I played one today. I went 0-2. I played a couple days ago. I went 3-6. But maybe in your pocket meta, this does better. But for me, the Sarah Control deck is top performer.
Yeah.
So have you tried this?
I've not tried the Sarah Surfer, but yeah, I would definitely recommend Sarah Control for anyone who wants to learn to get like better at the game itself, because I think Sarah Control teaches you about the game more so, like how to actually understand Marvel Snap from a very deep perspective, because you have to understand your opponent, right? So I think if you don't perform well with Sarah Control, don't give up is one thing I would say.
Just keep learning. It's a good deck. There are small tweaks you can even make to it. I know people used to even run like magic in here. Not saying I recommend that completely, but it's fun. It's fun. If you don't have Hitmonkey, I mean, you could probably do all right without it as well. The next deck here in the A tier, it's called Jeff the Baby Land Shark, and I think Untapped is still working on these names, because I mean, as you saw, Sarah Control and Hitmonkey are kind of like very similar. It's hard to differentiate these.
Yeah.
But Jeff the Baby Land Shark is actually a stature deck.
Well, actually, if you click into the View 32 decks, I think it includes a couple different archetypes, not just stature. So I did click into this and checked. Well, it's just like anything that includes Jeff the Baby Land Shark and a couple different archetypes. So
okay, I see.
Yeah, so it's a little bit deceptive. The majority of the games from this are the stature deck, so
yeah,
it is pretty much the stature deck. But
yeah, so basically the stature deck is floating around. You play Black Bolt in there to discard a card from your opponent's hand, and then your stature becomes a 1/7, which is pretty dang good. And you also have Polaris in here to move some stuff, or Jeff to move in order to make your miles cheap. Then you got the newly buffed Enchantress. You got Corrigan here and Rock Slide so that your Darkhawk is really nice and big. And then we got Zabu, since we have so many 4-drops. So we got 5 4-drops in here between Darkhawk, Shing, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, Enchantress, and Rock Slide. So Zabu pretty much being a Sarah in this situation. And then Nightcrawler as well to move to make your Spider-Man 1. So if on turn 5 you play Black Bolt and you move your Jeff or Nightcrawler, that means on turn 6 you get to play Miles Morales, your stature, maybe, you know, Enchantress or Shing as well. And it's crazy. Have you played this one?
I haven't yet. I saw KM Best post about this very recently on Twitter. I don't know if he created the deck or he's just been playing it a lot. But it did seem like something I wanted to check out because I have tried a few different stature Black Bolt decks. I don't think I've tried a Darkhawk stature deck, so this one seems like it'd be very strong. I think any Darkhawk deck in combo with other stuff that's strong is going to be good, so I have no doubt this deck will perform well because it almost seems like a Sarah deck, but instead of discounting your cards with Sarah, you're just including discount cards like Stature and Miles. So yeah, I think it's good. And Zabu, I guess, also discount. So
yeah, Zabu hitting like half your deck is kind of a big deal.
Imagine if Zabu was still the old Zabu.
The old Zabu. That'd be cracked.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, this is a very strong deck. If you do have Stature, go ahead and try it out. Usually when I do play Stature decks, they're more like Moon Girl builds. So you get multiple Statures. They also usually have like She-Hulk. So I'll probably try this one out eventually. But yeah, I think KM Best was saying like this is the best new deck or something like that.
Yeah, no clickbait.
Yeah, no clickbait. Definitely not clickbait.
Yeah, I think he said he had like a 70% win rate with it, which is pretty good. That's pretty high up there, you know?
Yeah.
It's not 80% with my Shanna deck, but I'm just saying it. But
we'll run through everything in B tier, and then we'll talk about the most popular decks, since that's probably what you guys are going to see the most. But at the top of B tier, we have Doomwave, Hela, which is weird to me, Deathwave, Darkhawk.
Not weird to me.
Galactus, Lockjaw, Bounce, Discard, Cerebro 2, and Hitmonkey. Those are rounding up B tier. But the most popular deck, the one you're going to see the most of, is Galactus. This is a very polarizing deck. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it. A lot of people love to hate it. But I think mostly I feel like people are very frustrated by Galactus. It's kind of, I guess, sometimes a linear play style. You know it's going to happen and you just can't do anything about it. So we wanted to go in depth and talk about Galactus and our thoughts on Galactus. Is he nerfable or is he overrated? Which, I feel... I see people complaining all the time. Is your chat complaining to you about this?
My chat doesn't seem to be full of too many Galactus haters, but you know, they're coming from a leader player, so they're watching me. But basically with Galactus, I do see a lot of Galactus hate on Twitter and a bunch of other places, sometimes in my chat. But I think a lot of it comes from the frustration of just the gameplay style. Similar to like Leader or Leech or other things that are just like restrictive playstyles that don't let you play out how you want to play. And I think that is definitely a feels bad thing regardless of how strong the card could be. And I see that a lot. And I kind of agree in only one sense though with Galactus. Like I personally, this was the same with Zabu when Zabu was discounting things by 2 and you could play Spider-Man, Absorbing Man, and it would lock down 2 lanes for the final turn. It feels bad, right?
Yeah.
I feel the same way about Galactus Spider-Man is the same exact problem as like double Spider-Man, in that locking down that final turn where you can't play anything is really feels bad, even if it doesn't happen that often and it's not very strong. I think it's too often right now in the fact that like if you get Wave on 3, Galactus on 4, Spider-Man on 5, which is probably like, I don't know, even if it's 1 in 5 games with the Galactus deck, I think that's too many. Like it's too many for like that exact lockout situation. Like that combo's too easy to pull off. Like I personally don't want that to be happening. I don't know about you.
It's very consistent because you could do Wave into Galactus into Spider-Man, or you could do Electro into Doc Ock on 4, and then on 5 you Galactus, and then because you Doc Ocked, you killed your Doc Ock on top of a lot of the stuff in their hand, then you null, and you end up having a huge null. So it's very, very consistent, and I think that's frustrating for a lot of people. It is a feels bad deck to play against. I feel like there's always some sort of deck like that. There's always a bad guy. Like it was Shuri, you know, until Shuri got changed. It was Sandman until Sandman got nerfed. It was the Spider-Man into Absorbing Man, so you lock down 2 lanes. It was that for a while. I feel like there's just always going to be like the bad guy that everyone wants to hate, and right now that is Galactus. I do feel like it's easy to see it coming, but being unable to do anything about it is very frustrating. if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, I feel like you don't lose too many cubes unless you get frustrated and you just stay in for a 4 cube or an 8 cube loss. Generally, it's like 1 or 2 cubes that you're losing, and then you just move on. If you look at the win rate, it's actually 50.9%, which is
so
kind of
maybe
low.
not as consistent as you would think.
Yeah,
because the win rate would be higher if it was more consistent, right? Because like the cube rate is what you would look at for like an inconsistent deck that's able to just like snap well against you. But with the win rate not being very high, it's not that consistent, as a lot of people pointed out. 2 people that are complaining about Galactus. There are a lot of counters, but does that matter in the grand scheme of how it feels? Maybe not, because like you can stop a Galactus in many ways, right? There's like 20 plus cards that could interact with Galactus in a way to make it so you can't go off. So if that's the case, like it's not a huge problem from a win rate perspective. It's more of a problem from a feels bad perspective when they do get those annoying combos off, like you said, Electro, Doc Ock, pull out all your answers, Galactus, or Wave, Galactus, Spider-Man. I think those are the 2 toxic interactions. And I think if they were to make changes to Galactus, it'd have to be to address those 2 different interactions in some way.
Yeah. I kind of reminds me of Leech, where like they do something and then you just can't play your deck. That's just the worst feeling. Same thing with Sandman. If you're playing a Hit Monkey or like a Sarah deck and you get Sandman, you probably get a little bit frustrated. But you know, it's just the way it is. I think he's a bit overrated, but I wouldn't mind seeing him get changed. I'm not really sure how you nerf him. I think he was buffed. He used to be 3 power. He got dropped to 2. Like the null line where they lose priority, then they play null, and null can't be shanked is pretty frustrating to try and play against. So I feel like that needs to be changed in a way where I don't know, they can make Galactus so you can't play him until turn 6.
I've heard people say the turn 6 thing, and I kind of don't want that to happen. I don't want it to be only a turn 6 play. I have been advocating for the change of turn 5 or later. That will at least alleviate the Spider-Man problem. It doesn't change the Doc Ock problem, but I do think that eliminating one of those 2 toxic interactions would help alleviate a lot of the problems. And also, I think a lot of people, like as you said at the beginning of this conversation, a lot of people like the Galactus gameplay. Like they like to play it, and it's a really fun. So you'd be eliminating a large portion of people that like to play a certain card a certain way if you make it only turn 6. Because I think one of the best and most fun decks is, and the least straightforward Galactus deck, is a Nimrod Destroyer Galactus, where you can play it on turn 5 or turn 6. And that makes it a little bit of a like will he, won't he, like kind of situation, where I think that's really fun to actually play that kind of mind game with your opponent. And if you eliminate those mind games, I think Galactus might move to unplayability, which is basically like deleting the card.
Yeah. My favorite Galactus deck is the Nimrod one, where, you know, I don't know, you Shuri and then you Nimrod and then you Galactus a different lane. Maybe you have Wolverine on the board and he jumps over as well. I think that's really fun. I feel like that's not frustrating to play against, because also your opponent can see it coming. It's kind of like a turn 6 Galactus. But yeah, maybe just getting rid of one of these problems, just getting rid of the Spider-Man problem, that might be the way to go. So maybe it's like Galactus, this card can't be played before turn 5.
Yep. I think that would solve a lot of my own personal frustration. But you know, we would solve that one problem. But then, you know, next month there is a card coming out called Iron Lad, which takes the ability from your top card of your deck. And that means that if Galactus is on top of your deck and you play Iron Lad on turn 4, that could be another turn 4 Galactus, right? I don't know if I guess if the card text itself said can't be affected on turn 4, that would be a nerf to this Iron Lad interaction. And maybe they wouldn't want to do that before Galactus comes out, because they want this to be Galactus. In their reveal video, they had Iron Lad doing the Galactus animation. So they
do show it, but I feel like that's just like one of their nicest animations. I don't think that's their main like intention with the card. Like using this and hitting like a Jubilee would be cool. Even hitting like a Spider Woman, like pretty much anything that's expensive.
Professor X,
or like a White Tiger. There's a lot of great hits off of Iron Lad.
Arnim Zola.
Arnim Zola would be cool. Yeah, so this is going to be a good card, I think. Copying Galactus would be fun, I guess, for Galactus enjoyers. But yeah, I don't think that's gonna be happening too often. Like, do you put him in a Galactus
12
deck?
games.
Yeah, you don't put him in a Galactus deck.
No, I think you do put him in Galactus deck. I think you just make new to Galactus decks, though. I think he does go in Galactus decks.
Oh well, yeah, he'd actually be nuts with like a Doc even.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's going to be you could wave, you can Electro with them. You can do a lot of things. So it's like it's another ramp card, it's another Galactus enabler, it's another Doc. It's going to be in every Galactus deck, I think.
And it's got the Enchantress stat line, which is very good.
Yep. Yeah. I think this will be a Galactus card first and
foremost. I think you're right.
I think it'll be another archetype as well.
Yeah. This would go great in Galactus.
We'll talk about it in a future episode.
Yeah. Okay, so another topic I did want to talk about was collector tokens not being as good as they once were. In the past, you can buy all these pool 3 cards, right? So for people who were not pool 3 complete, you'd get your collector's tokens and you'd be able to buy Arrow or buy Sarah or whatever. And now you just get one of those free per month, which is, it's hard to complain about free things, but at the same time, you can't really buy pool 3 cards. You have to get them from reserves. So you can only use your collector's tokens on Series 4 or Series 5 cards, which just really limits them. And I think people need to reevaluate the value of a collector's token. We could see Dera crunch some numbers here, and I have no idea what this means, but what did you find, Dera?
Well, I was just calculating how much, what bundles and different things I needed to buy in order to have enough collector's tokens to get exactly enough to get the next 7 cards there's going to be 7 over the next 2 months that are coming out into Series 5. So I crunched the numbers of how much I would personally need to buy and which bundles I would need to buy. So I'm not spending $200 per card. That was my goal. So just to min-max and which were the best bundles. So it's like the May $100 bundle is the best value. The June bundles, there's 2 in June that are going to be okay value. They're going to be like $20 for one, $10-ish for another one, because the $20 one comes with some gold you could apply to a future one. So I was just doing all these things. Buying all the Token Tuesdays are pretty good value for tokens. So it's like I wanted to min-max just so that I'm getting the most out of the collector's tokens, because the whole system I think is very expensive and you can't use them on anything but Series 4 and 5 right now. So I'm only spending them on Series 4 and 5, and I'm just going to keep doing that. And I think all the new cards that are coming out in the next 2 months all look kind of cool and interesting, and I want to get them. So it's kind of like I want to make sure I'm not spending $1 million to do it. I don't know.
Yeah. Do you feel like, because you have a free-to-play account, right? And you're probably missing quite a few pool 3 cards that you wish you could buy with 1,000 collector's tokens?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, my free-to-play account, I have like 6,000 or maybe like 5,000 tokens on it, but it's like I don't want one pool 5 card with that, right? Like I'm still missing so many cards I need to just make regular pool 3 decks. Like I'd rather be able to make a cool deck with the new season pass that comes out, season pass card that comes out, and then like have some supporting series 3 cards, right? But
yeah,
I just can't, because I can't even buy them from the shop. And then I logged in like a couple days ago into my free-to-play account, and I got Patriot from my Series 3 free card. But it's like now that's the only card I had for the whole month. So it's just like I can't get another card for my tokens with it anymore.
Yeah. So I guess the main reason I just wanted to bring this up was I do hope somehow they make it so you can progress your pool 3 collection faster for those who are not pool 3 complete. It's often hard for me. I lose sight because I'm a whale or whatever, and I have a full collection. But a lot of people come and they complain. They still want I wish I had Sarah, but I have to wait until next month because I just picked up Arrow or whatever, or I just picked up Patriot.
Oh, man. Not having Sarah would be awful. That's
and
especially right now.
Yeah, and then you just have to wait a whole month. You can't even put money into the game if you wanted to. People used to froth at the mouth for Token Tuesday, right? Like, oh, maybe I can get 4,000 tokens in this bundle. I could pick up 4 pull 3 cards. Yeah, it's $50 or whatever, but I'm going to be able to make a whole deck almost with these 4 cards. And now it's like, you get 1 card.
Yeah, the only way to progress your collection pool 3 wise is to just randomly open them on the track, really, which was the original problem with why they came out with the token shop in the first place, was to help alleviate that randomness and not being able to fill out that one deck you've been trying to make. So it's like now they just like, you can only fill it out with 1 card per month. So you have 1 card that you can kind of help fill it out. So unless you're like a mega whale that's mega playing as well, so you're playing the game a lot and you're paying a lot, it's going to take you a while to get through pool 3 and you're going to really struggle. And I think that's going to hurt the longevity of the game and getting new people to play it, because I think they're going to get frustrated in that pool 3 experience and a lot of them are going to drop out. Yeah,
there's a big like moat, or I don't even know what to call it, but being able to jump into the game and play a deck that you actually want is something I hear people complain about all the time. People come from Hearthstone, they want to play a Sarah deck, or they want to play my Sentry deck, you know, but you need Sentry and you need Luke Cage and you need, what pull is Viper? I don't even know. But it's like, you just can't do that.
Viper's
you have to play.
3.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So you got to play like 4 months before you can play that deck. Like people are just going to quit before they
like
can do
4
that.
months is an entire expansion in other games where like you're now onto a whole new meta with all new decks, right? Like, or mostly new decks. There have been some metas that don't change with new cards that come out, but I think it's really important that they do have some sort of ability for people to come in and not spend a crazy amount of money or a crazy amount of time to get to a decent point with some decks.
Yeah, so that's just my hope, is that they're still continuing to work on this, because I want the experience for new players to be really good and not like frustrating like it possibly can be. Yeah, so that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you all for listening or watching, and thank you to Untapped.gg for sponsoring this. Be sure to check them out in the link below. If you're listening to the podcast, I'll try and link it somehow there as well, but if you're not, you can check out the YouTube video links and click my link and maybe get Untapped.gg Premium if you want to try it out. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching or listening.
Thanks, everyone.